No.14 Squadron of the Royal Air Force currently operates the Beechcraft Shadow R1 in the intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and reconnaissance role from RAF Waddington. History: World War I. No. 14 Squadron of the Royal Flying Corps was formed on 3 February 1915 at Shoreham with Morris Farman S-11 and BE-2 aircraft. After a few months of training it departed for the Middle East in November of that same year for Army cooperation duties during the Sinai and Palestine campaign. In 1916 the squadron's BE-2s were supplemented with a small number of DH-1A two-seat fighters for escort duties, with the type remaining in use until March 1917. Other fighters operated by the squadron's fighter flight included the Bristol Scout and Vickers FB-19, but the fighter flight left the squadron in August 1917 to form No.111 Squadron. The squadron flew in support of British forces in the Third Battle of Gaza in late 1917. In November 1917 the squadron was equipped with Royal Aircraft Factory RE-8s, which were used to perform reconnaissance duties, attacking the Turkish 7th Army as it retreated following the Battle of Nablus. It was recalled to the UK in January 1919 and disbanded the following month. Squadron motto. The squadron motto, "I spread my wings and keep my promise," is believed by many, including the RAF, to be an extract from the Quran as suggested to the RAF by the Emir of Transjordan but in Arabic. This is not quite as depicted on the squadron badge. Between the wars on 1 February 1920 the squadron was reformed in Ramla by renumbering No.111 Squadron. The squadron operated Bristol fighters and used them for various duties including photo surveying and air policing. The squadron patrolled Transjordan and Palestine for the next 20 years, and it was during this period that the squadron gained its Arabic motto. Airco DH-9A bombers supplemented the squadron's Bristol fighters in June 1924, using them to attack and together with RAF-operated armored cars helped defeat a several thousand-strong raiding force of Ikhwan tribesmen at El Ahmed, 12 miles south of Amman in Jordan in August that year. The squadron fully equipped with DH-9s in January 1926. Fairey IIFs replaced the squadron's DH-9s in November 1929, using them on reconnaissance duties during civil unrest in Palestine. The Fairey Gordon, a radial engine derivative of the IIF, re-equipped the squadron in September 1932, being used for operations against Arab rioters during the 1933 Palestine riots. In March 1938, the squadron replaced its Gordons with Vickers-Wellesley monoplane bombers. World War II. When World War II broke out, the squadron was transferred to Egypt but soon returned to Amman. In May 1940, with the likelihood of war between Britain and Italy increasing rapidly, 14 Squadron was ordered to move to Port Sudan to reinforce the weak RAF forces in East Africa facing Italian forces in Ethiopia and Eritrea. On 10 June, Italy declared war on Britain and France, and on the night of 11/12 June 14th Squadron flew its first offensive mission of the Second World War, when 9 Wellesleys bombed fuel storage tanks and the airfield at Massawa. It lost its first Wellesley to Italian defences on 14 June during a second raid against Massawa. The squadron received a single Supermarine Walrus from 47 Squadron which was used for patrol patrols over the Red Sea in July 1940, while the squadron's Wellesleys continued bombing missions against Italian targets. The squadron started to receive twin-engined Bristol Blenheims in September that year, flying its first Blenheim mission on the 20th of September, and flying its final Wellesley sortie on the 20th of November. In March 1941 it carried out bombing raids in support of the assault on Keren. In April 1941, following the liberation of Addis Ababa, the squadron was sent to Egypt for operations over the Western Desert. The squadron was deployed in support of Operation Brevity on 15-16 May 1941, an unsuccessful British offensive, and carried out attacks on German and Italian motor transport, with 5 Blenheims being shot down by Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighters of 3 Grappi Jagdgeschwader 27 while carrying out strafing attacks along the Tobruk-Kaputso road on the 21st of May. The squadron flew attacks against Maleme airfield on 25 and the 27th of May during the Battle of Crete, and in June, flew in support of Operation Battleaxe, another unsuccessful British offensive in the Western Desert. On the 7th of July 1941, the squadron withdrew from the Western Desert, being based in Palestine and Iraq until it returned to Egypt in November 1941. On the 17th of August 1942, 14 Squadron was withdrawn from operations to convert to the Martin Marauder, the first RAF squadron to operate this American bomber. The squadron flew its first operational mission with the Marauder, a maritime reconnaissance mission, on the 26th of October 1942. The squadron used its Marauders for long-range maritime reconnaissance missions, mina-laying and anti-shipping attack with torpedoes. The squadron's Marauders sank a tanker with torpedoes on the 19th of January 1943 and 2 more merchant ships on the 21st of February. In March 1943, it started performing anti-submarine missions out of Algeria, basing detachments in Italy and Sardinia, moving completely to Alghero in Sardinia in June 1944. The squadron flew its last Marauder mission on the 21st of September that year, leaving its equipment behind when it transferred back to the UK. On its return to the UK, the squadron was based at RAF Chavanna and carried out anti-submarine mission over the western approaches and the Bay of Biscay using Vickers, Wellington Mk. XIVs. The squadron was again disbanded on the 1st of June 1945 but was reborn the same day, when 143 Squadron at Banff, equipped with the de Havilland Mosquito Mk.Vi in the anti-shipping strike role, was renumbered. This incarnation of the squadron was short-lived, being disbanded on the 31st of March 1946. With RAF Germany, disbandment did not last long, however. The following day, No.128 Squadron, operating Mosquito B-16s at RAF Wann in Germany, was renumbered No.14 Squadron, and the squadron lived again. In December 1947, the Mosquito B-16s were replaced with the Mosquito B-35 variant. The squadron moved to RAF Celle in September 1949, but this was a short placement as they moved again in November 1950, this time to RAF Fassberg. In 1951, the squadron received Vampire FB-5s to replace the Mosquitoes, while in 1953 the Vampires made place for Venom FB-1s. The squadron converted to the day fighter role when it received Hunter F-4s in 1955 while based at RAF Oldenburg, where they stayed for 2 years before moving to RAF Ahlhorn. The squadron used the Hunters until the 17th of December 1962, when the unit was disbanded at RAF Gütersloh. The same day, however, No.88 Squadron was renumbered No. No.14 Squadron, flying Canberra B-8s from RAF Waddington until disbandment there on 30 June 1970. On that same 30 June 1970 the squadron was reformed at RAF Waddington and operated Phantom FGR-2s until April 1975, when they were replaced with the SCP-EC-80 Jaguar. From 1976 the role at RAF Waddington, assigned to SACEUR, was support of the Army in European land battle, first in a conventional role, and later in a nuclear delivery role should tactical nuclear weapons be used. The squadron's 12 Jaguars were expected by RAF planning staff to suffer attrition of 1/3 their strength, leaving sufficient survivors to deliver the stockpile of 8 177 nuclear bombs. From 1986 the squadron's 12 Jaguars were exchanged for 12 Tornado GR-1s, for use in a similar role. Tornadoes were able to carry 2 177 nuclear bombs, and the RAF staff expected that there would be enough survivors of the conventional war phase to deliver an increased stock of 18 bombs. No.14 Squadron was believed to have relinquished its nuclear delivery role in 1994, the last year for which information is available, although the RAF retained some 177 bombs until 1998. Back in the Middle East, in August 1990, the squadron was dispatched to Bahrain in response to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait as part of Operation Granby, along with 2 other squadrons from Waddington. No.9 and No.31 Squadrons. Recent history. The squadron returned to the UK in January 2001. It operated from RAF Lossiemouth as the Tornado GR-4 Force Squadron, specializing in low-level TILD, night electro-optical low-level and operational low-flying. It participated in Operation Resonate, flying sorties from Ali Al Salem Ab, Kuwait until January 2003. The squadron returned to Ali Al Salem in the summer of 2003 as part of Operation TELIC and was the last Tornado Squadron to fly operations from the Kuwaiti Air Base. In September 2003, the 6 Tornadoes took off from Ali Al Salem for the last time, flying operational missions over Iraq and landing at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, where the Tornado detachment remained until the cessation of operations over Iraq in the summer of 2009. Crews from the squadron took part in the first detachment of Tornado GR Force personnel to Operation Hurricane, supported the handover of RAF fast jet operations from the Harrier to the Tornado. 14 Squadron carried out its only autonomous detachment to Kandahar between November 2010 and February 2011, flying day and night in support of ISAF forces across Afghanistan. The squadron mounted ground alert as well as flying numerous planned recce sorties using the Raptipod and CAS sorties equipped with Paveway IV 500 pounds bombs and dual-mode Seeker MBDA Brimstone missiles. Disbandment and reformation. After its return to the UK in 2011, it was announced that it would be disbanded as one of the 2 Tornado squadrons due to cease operations as part of the 2010 SDSR, along with 13 Squadron based at RAF Marham. The squadron ceased operations in March 2011 and was formally disbanded on 1 June 2011. HRH Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, was the reviewing officer. 14 Squadron was one of the only RAF units to keep a mascot. Squadron LDR Eric Aldravadi, a Burmese python, had been with the squadron since its transition to the Tornado in 1985. Squadron LDR Aldravadi took the opportunity of his squadron's disbanding to retire, and is now kept at Amazonia at Strathclyde Country Park. He was handed over by members of 14 Squadron in July 2011. The squadron was reformed on 14 October 2011 at RAF Waddington, operating the Beechcraft Shadow R1, previously on the strength of No.14 Squadron RAF. From September 2014, the squadron has temporarily relocated to Cranwell along with 5 Squadron due to the resurfacing of RAF Waddington's runway, which will take over a year to complete. Aircraft operated BE-2C 1915 to 1917, DH-1 at 1916 1917, REH 1917-1918, Bristol Fighter 1920 to 1930s, de Havilland DH-9A 1924 to 1929, Fairey IIF 1929 to 1932, Fairey Gordon 1932, Wellesley MK I 1938 to 1940, Blenheim MK IV 1940 to 1942, Marauder MK I 1942 to 1944, Wellington Mk 14 1944 1945, Mosquito Mk Vi B 16 B 35 to 1945-1951, Vampire FB 5 to 1951-1955, Venom FB 1 to 1953-1955, Hunter F4 F6 to 1955-1962, Canberra B8 to 1962-1970, Phantom FGR 2 to 1970-1975, Seppercat Jaguar GR 1 to 1975-1985, Tornado GR 1 GR 1A 1985 to 2004, Tornado GR 4 to 2004-2011, Beechcraft Shadow R1 to 2011 present.